Hey geometry students, this is some extra practice from your lesson 12 in your core class where you started to talk about your rigid transformations. In this extra practice, we're just going to focus on rotations. So our objectives are to identify an angle of rotation and the center of rotation given an image and pre-image. So we should be able to be looking at something that's been transformed, figure out how far it rotated and around what point. And then we also want to be able to construct an image defined by a rotation given a pre-image, a center of dilation, and an angle of rotation. So we'll see those two right now. But for our quick notes, we're going to look at, here's an example of each of these transformations applied to the letter R. So here we see a rotation, and we need to know at least two things to do this. We needed to know the center of rotation. We need to know around what point it rotates, right? If we rotate a point, something right around this point R, 90 degrees, maybe it would turn into an R that looks like this, right? If I just picked a point on our R. But if we picked a different point, it might rotate differently. We also needed to know the amount and direction of rotation. So that means we could either rotate clockwise in the direction the clock face goes, or we could go counterclockwise the other way. So there's two different directions we can rotate. We could also rotate different amounts. Maybe we rotate 30 degrees or 180 degrees. Right? The second transformation you talked about was a reflection. For this, we only needed to know the line of reflection. So looking at this picture over here between the two R's, I would need to know what line that these two reflected over, such that we could pick a point and reflect it to the other side of our line. Maybe that's a good sketch of what kind of line that R was reflected over. And the last one is just the translation. For this, we really only need to know how far and what direction. Maybe we could think of this as like, in the case of this R, maybe it moved, I don't know, a couple inches to the right. It also could have moved up though, so we have to say how far and in what direction. All right. So here's two examples down here. We're going to walk through these two, and then on the back side, there are 4 practice problems that kind of go along with these two examples. So once we've taken notes and walked through these examples, you should be able to go on and try out those next ones. It says, example 1, for the diagram below, find and draw each of the following. It says, draw the circle that represents the rotation using any point on the pre-image and its image, right? And the second thing we need to find is the angle created with 3 points of your choice, which demonstrate the angle of rotation. So we want to find, given an image and a pre-image, the circle we rotated and how much. All right. So here it gives us a pre-image, and we just got to fill this. It would give us this. The pre-image is the dotted line, or just the plain letter. Oops, I take that back. The pre-image is the solid line, or just the letter A, right? The letter A is a point on our pre-image, so that would be it over here on the right. That would be our pre-image. It's kind of like this little circle with a line attached to it. And the image is the dashed line or the dotted line. And it's called A prime. And we call that little apostrophe, that little tick mark up here, that's A prime, which means it's A after we've transformed it, A after we've changed it. Okay. And then here it would have given this 2, the center of rotation. It rotated around this point P. We'll just label that there. So our first thing we have to find is the circle that determines the rotation. So from point P to point A, we're going to draw a little segment here. And this is going to be like the radius of our circle that's going to represent our rotation. Now, I don't have with me a I don't have a tool that allows me to be a compass on this. I do have some basic shapes here. I'm going to try and make a circle that fits over it. But you all should use your compass starting at point P to make a circle. So this is getting me kind of close. I want to, oops, undo. Control C. Phew. I want to so make that circle bigger. It didn't quite do what I wanted it to. So there's an example of a circle that would be too small. I'm going to try again and make a circle that's bigger that should fit right over top. See if I can use this right. That's about the right size. I'm going to pick it up and slide it. It needs to be a little bit bigger. Oops. So instead, because that's not really working for me, what I'm going to do instead is just draw a circle. And again, you should use your compass to this. So I know that's about the radius of my circle. I'm just going to draw a circle around this point P with that radius. And I'm not going to be doing it perfectly, but with your compass you should be able to do it perfectly. Let me try a little bit better here. Something like that. So that circle would represent the rotation. So that would be our answer to part 1. And then the angle of rotation, it says an angle created with 3 points of your choice, which demonstrates the angle of rotation. So looking at our diagram here, if we're looking at point A, rotating over to point A prime, say the angle that it rotated is this angle formed right here, underneath it. So from point A to point A prime, we rotated this angle. And again, the way we name an angle, I'm going to label it over here. The angle of rotation is going to be angle. It starts at one of our vertices. So I'm going to call that A up here, A. And then goes to the vertex, P. And then it goes to the other endpoint, I'm doing a different color, blue, A prime. So AP, A prime would be our angle. You could have also labeled it, or you could have said angle A prime, P, A. Both of those would be true. All right, so that's kind of what we need to be able to do here. We need to be able to draw a circle using a point and the center. And then once we have that circle, pick out one angle that represents how far our image rotated. Right. So that's what we need to do for that type of problem. For example 2, it says use a protractor and a straight edge to rotate your shape 30 degrees around point E. All right, so what I want to do here, again, I don't have a protractor. I do have a straight edge and something that measures angles though, so that'll help me a lot. My point E, I'm rotating around point E, and I have to take each of the points. So this right here is going to be my pre-image. I have to take each of the points in my pre-image and rotate them 30 degrees around point E. So to do this, I'm going to imagine that I have this circle around my point E, just like we did in the last case. And I want to rotate about 30 degrees. So right now I'm just going to make a sketch of where this might end up. 30 degrees from there, if I rotate around that center, 30 degrees would be about that far. And then maybe my new point, my D prime, might be right there. That's kind of the same format we used in example 1, applied here to just make a sketch of where our shape's going to end up. If I did the same thing for point B, I'm going to do it in a different color. I'm going to do it in green. E to B, and I have a much bigger circle here. Rotated 30 degrees, maybe would take my point somewhere over here. 30 degrees, something like that. But what we're going to do then, I'm going to use my straight edge and my ruler. So that's kind of a sketch. We know D is going to end up somewhere down there. Let's see if we can use a ruler to make this more precise. Get out my ruler. All right. So my ruler only measures angles from flat. But right here, I'm at 21 degrees, and I want to rotate it 30 degrees around that same point. So if I'm at 21, if I start rotating, rotate, at 0 degrees, that would be 21 degrees I've gone. So I need to go, how many more? 21 plus how many gives me 30? 9 more. I'm going to go 9 more. 6, 7, 8, 9. Oops, 9. There. So this would be a ray that's rotated 30 degrees. Now I just have to find the right length. So let me go back and just measure this now. I see, I'm going to start with it on a big one at D. Well, that's almost exactly from one big mark to another. So let me try that. That's sort of like one big unit on this ruler. So if I rotate this and measure one big unit, my new point D is going to be right there. Let me get rid of my ruler now. Point D would be right there. So that would be my point D prime. And then once I make this, I would kind of want to do this in pencil. Once I make it, I might delete some of these stray marks just so my drawing doesn't get too messy. And then now let's take one other point. Let's do point B like we said at the start. So point B, I'm going to make a ray to point B. Get my ruler back out. Just about like this. A big pen on there. So B to E would be a segment something like that. Now my job is to rotate that segment. Rotate 30 degrees. So right now I'm at, let's see if I can be precise here. Right now I'm at, we'll call it 70 degrees so it's nice and easy. So I need to rotate 70 degrees, so I should end up, I'm going to be rotating down. So 70 to, 30 degrees, 70 to 40. So I'm rotating, I want this to be at 40 degrees. Maybe right there. All right. So I'm going to make my ray. It's a 30-degree rotation. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to measure this segment to be the right length. So I'm starting on a big one there, and I'm going, I kind of count through this, I see there's one big unit there, two big units there, about 2.5 big units on this ruler. So if I line this up again, there we go. Again, there's a half a unit, one big unit, two big units. So that would be about as far out. So my new point B prime is going to be right there where I marked in blue, my ruler away. This will be my new point B prime. So at this point we have two of the things on our image. I'm going to erase some of my stray marks again. And I'm going to kind of just start making a sketch of what the rest of it would look like. So we could repeat that process over and over. In the interest of time, though, I'm just going to kind of sketch out the rest of these. Maybe I'll do one more. I'll do C just to make sure we see the overall shape, and then we'll sketch in A. So C is going to be 1, 2, 3¼ units long. And if I rotate it, we're at 83. I got to rotate it 30 degrees. We're going to go to 53. It's going to be right about up here. Get rid of my ruler. That would be my point C prime. Okay, so now we have a pretty good idea of how to sketch this. I'll use my straight edge to help me, again, kind of connect my dots, but D prime to C prime would look something like this. B prime to C prime would look something like there we go, something like that. And then I'm just going to sketch in the rest in the interest of time. But we see how we could continue to we could do the same for A, rotate it, and we would get our shape rotated. Just kind of a sketch there. A prime. All right, so there's an example of how you would use a protractor. In your case, a protractor will work a little bit differently, but I'll help us work with that in class. And a straight edge to build our shape. All right, on the back side, there are 2 questions that ask you to do like we did in example 1, to draw a circle and identify the angle of rotation. And then in 3 and 4, there's 2 questions that ask you to actually rotate a quadrilateral or a triangle using a compass and straight edge, or a protractor and straight edge. This should be a protractor. All right, so try those out. Check your solutions with your intervention teacher, and that's it for our extra practice on lesson 412.